Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, The Process of Creation, text number 22. I'll chant the verse and then we can chant the word for word. Chodita yena para Sarasvatī, Prachodita yena pura Sarasvatī, Vitanvata jasya satim shrutim hridi, Vitavata jasya satim shrutim hridi, Swalakshana praduravut kalasyata Swalakshana praduravut kilasyata Same rishinam rishabha prasita ta Prasidatam.
Prachodita yena pura Sarasvatī, Vitam vatajasya satim shrutim hridi, Swalakshana pradurvut kilasyatah, Same rishinam rishabha prasidatam.
Prachoditayena pura Sarasvatī, Vitam vatajasya satim smritim hridi, Swalakshana pradurvut kilasyatah, Same rishinam rishabha prasidatam.
Prachodita, inspired, yena, by whom, pura, in the beginning of creation, Sarasvatī, the goddess of learning, Vitanvata, amplified, Ajasya, of Brahmā, the first created living being, Satim Shritim, potent memory, Hridi, in the heart, Swab, in his own, Lakshana, aiming at, Pradurvut, was generated, Kila, as if, sorry, Ashataha, from the mouth, Rishinam, of the teachers, Rishabha, the chief, Pratsidatam, he pleased. May the Lord, who in the beginning of the creation amplified the potent knowledge of Brahmā from within his heart and inspired him with full knowledge of creation and of his own self, and who appeared to be generated from the mouth of Brahmā, be pleased with me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As we have already discussed herein before, the Lord, as the Supersoul of all living beings, from Brahmā to the insignificant ant, endowed all, sorry, I need my glasses. Could you pass me my? Yes, it's there. Thank you. 1.5 magnifiers. Not bad, it's 75. As we have already discussed herein before, the Lord, as the Supersoul of all living beings, from Brahmā to the insignificant ant, endows all with the required knowledge potent in every living being. A living being is sufficiently potent to possess knowledge from the Lord in the proportion of 50/64, or 78% of the full knowledge acquirable. Since the living being is constitutionally part and parcel of the Lord, he is able to assimilate all the knowledge that the Lord possesses himself. In the conditioned state, the living being is subjected to forget everything after a change of body known as death. This potent knowledge is again inspired by the Lord from within the heart of every living being, and it is known as the awakening of knowledge, for it is comparable to awakening from sleep or unconsciousness. This awakening of knowledge is under the full control of the Lord, and therefore we find in the practical world different grades of knowledge in different persons. This awakening of knowledge is neither an automatic nor a material interaction. The supply source is the Lord himself, Niyam Pati. For even Brahmā is also subjected to this regulation of the Supreme Controller. In the beginning of the creation, Brahmā is born first without any father and mother, because before Brahmā there was no other living beings. Brahmā is born from the lotus which grows from the abdomen of the Garbhodakṣaya Vishnu, and therefore he is known as Aja. This Brahmā, or Aja, is also a living being, part and parcel of the Lord. But being the most pious devotee of the Lord, Brahmā is inspired by the Lord to create, subsequent to the main creation of the Lord, through the agency of material nature. Therefore, neither the material nature nor Brahmā is independent of the Lord. The material scientists can merely observe the reactions of the material nature without understanding the direction behind such activities, as a child can see the action of electricity without any knowledge of the powerhouse engineer. This imperfect knowledge of the material scientists is due to a poor fundal knowledge. The Vedic knowledge was therefore first impregnated within Brahmā, and it appears that Brahmā distributed the Vedic knowledge. Brahmā is undoubtedly the speaker of the Vedic knowledge, but actually he is inspired by the Lord to receive such transcendental knowledge as it directly descends from the Lord. The Vedas are therefore called Apauruṣeya, or not imparted by any created being. Before the creation, the Lord was there, Narayana Paravyaktat. And therefore the words spoken by the Lord are vibrations of transcendental sound. There is a gulf of difference between the two qualities of sound, namely prakrita and aprakrita. The physicist can deal only with the prakrita sound, or sound vibrated in the material sky. And therefore we must know that the Vedic sounds recorded in symbolic expressions cannot be understood by anyone in the universe unless and until one is inspired by the vibration of supernatural aprakrita sound, which descends in the chain of disciplic succession from the Lord to Brahma, from Brahma to Narad, from Narad to Vyasa, and so on. No mundane scholar can translate or reveal the true purport of the Vedic mantras, hymns. They cannot be understood unless one is inspired or initiated by the authorized spiritual master. The original spiritual master is the Lord himself, and the succession comes down through the process of Paramparā, as clearly stated in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So unless one receives the transcendental knowledge from the authorized Paramparā, one should be considered useless. Vipala mataha, even though one may be greatly qualified in the mundane advancements of arts or science. Sukadeva Goswami is praying from the Lord by dint of being inspired from within by the Lord, so that he could rightly explain the facts and figures of creation as inquired by Maharaj Pariksit. A spiritual master is not a theoretical speculator like the mundane scholar, but a Shrotriyam Brahma Nishtam. Well, Pranashwari, can you chant the verse again, please? Now chant the whole verse on your own.
Chant again.
Chant the whole verse. No, that verse. So we won't repeat. Just you just chant, no repeat. Beautiful. So here's a service for you. There are so many prayers in the Bhāgavatam, and they all have beautiful meters. And, you could make recordings of these prayers so that busy people can listen to them while they're driving the car or doing their housework or whatever. This can be your preaching. Hare Krishna. There's a saying that music soothes the savage beast. And I've seen videos of people playing musical instruments around animals, and the animals are very attractive, especially cows. There's one video I saw, some people were playing violins by the side of a paddock with cows in it, and all the cows came, and they were all very much enchanted by the music. I remember many years ago, over 60 years ago, actually, 60 years ago, I think, pretty much 55, 60 years ago, I read a book called The Secret Life of Plants. There's another book recently published called The Secret Life of Trees. There's lots of books like that, The Secret Life of different things. So there's another book, very much interesting book called The Secret Life of the Unborn Child. Anyway, in The Secret Life of Plants, there was a story there of an experiment that was done with plants and sound. And it was set up so that two plants of the same species from the same seed lot at the same level of growth were placed in two separate rooms. Each room was an exact replica of the other in every detail. And there was a speaker system in each room, and each plant was watered the same amount every day, and so on. But in one room, through the speaker system, they played classical music. And in the other room, they played what was in those days called acid rock and roll, heavy metal rock and roll. And they observed what happened over a period of time. And with the plant that was played with the rock, played the rock and roll music, and both were played very loud. And the plant that was exposed to the heavy metal rock and roll was growing away from the source of sound, and its growth was stunted. And the plant that was played the classical music was growing luxuriously toward the source of the sound. So that's the power of sound on a plant. Vaisheshika Prabhu, I'm sure you're all familiar with him in some way. He's been working for some time now on a book called Mantra Meditation. And one of the chapters in it is called The Power of Sound. And he has all kinds of examples of what sound does, positively and negatively. And that's just mundane sound. Mundane sound, obviously, will be steeped in duality. The material world is based on dualities. Ichcha, dvesha, samuttena, dvandva mohena bharata. Sarvabhuteshu samoham sargayanti parantamha. All living beings are born into delusion, overcome by the dualities of desire and hate. So, duality is that's just the basic duality in it, and it resonates from there, hot and cold and so on. So good and bad within the realm of prakriti are actually just all bad. Sounds in the material world are ultimately, material sounds are all bad for us, because whether within one particular set of circumstances a sound is considered good or it's considered bad, it's all bad, because attraction to and repulsion from things and the resultant activities we engage in, which I call either pious or impious, will simply take us to different situations in the material world through the repetition of birth and death. So all sound to do with mundane matters is simply binding us to the material world. But on the other hand, transcendental sound liberates us from material bondage. There's a beautiful verse in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Shrinvatam swakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana hridiyanta sto yabhadrani vidunoti satam. That the Supreme Lord is the Paramatma. The Supreme Lord is the Paramatma, the Supersoul within the heart of every living entity. And from him, and he cleanses away the desire for material enjoyment from the truthful devotee who has developed a taste, an urge to hear his messages, which in themselves are virtuous when properly heard and chanted. There's two aspects to properly heard and chanted, just like we heard Mother Praneshwari chant in a very proper meter, and it's very beautiful and very attractive. But also, proper manner means with a submissive attitude, heard and chanted with a submissive and open heart, without any sense of challenging or criticizing what one is hearing. And the truthfulness of the devotee is very important in this process. In other words, if one really wants to make advancement in Krishna consciousness, one has to first of all recognize that one is not in Krishna consciousness. Just like with alcoholics, the first step in the recovery from alcoholism is to recognize I'm an alcoholic. I've been to AA meetings. I have a devotee friend in Dayton, in Ohio, who runs drug and alcohol rehabilitation programs. He himself is a recovering alcoholic. So he takes his people to this Alcoholics Anonymous meeting once a week as a part of their healing, part of their rehabilitation. And they have an open session, part of the meeting, where anybody can make some kind of statement about where they are in their recovery, any challenges they may be having, or any particular victories they may have had. And they all start by saying, I'm so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic. So that recognition has to be there. So in order to become submissive, could you not talk, please? Could you not talk? I'm sorry. In order to become submissive at the lotus feet of the pure devotee of the Lord, one has to be like Arjuna. Or another very nice example in the Bhagavatam, I think one of the most compelling and powerful examples of submission to a spiritual master is by Mother Devahūti to Lord Kapila, where she presents herself in a very humble way. Actually, we can just have a quick look at that, where she, if we understand her life, she has a life of great material opulence. First of all, she's the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. To become a Manu is a very exalted position. Not the most exalted position, but nonetheless a very exalted position. And she becomes the wife of Kadama Muni, a greatly powerful yogi. Just by his mystic power, he manifests a mini planet. Well, I don't know what would you call it? It's an airplane, but it's in the design of an island, a large island floating in the sky with amazing facilities on it, natural and built. And he just manifests that out of his yogic power and takes her on board for a romantic journey all over the universe. He expands himself 9 times for sexual relationships with her. She produces 9 children, 9 beautiful daughters, and then Lord Kapila appears as her son. So she has an amazing life. But then she approaches, after Kadama Muni leaves, she approaches Lord Kapila and she says, where are we? Oh, here it is. Yeah. When Kapila, who could show her the ultimate goal of the absolute truth, was sitting leisurely before her, Devahūti remembered the words Brahmā had spoken to her, and she therefore began to question Kapila as follows. Lord Brahmā was also involved in this. This is a long story, we don't need to go into it. A beautiful story, actually. Devahūti said, I am very sick of the disturbance caused by my material senses. For because of this sense disturbance, my Lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. Your Lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental I, which by your mercy only, I have attained after many, many births. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin and supreme Lord of all living entities. You have arisen to disseminate the rays of the sun in order to dissipate the darkness of the ignorance of the universe. Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel my great delusion. Due to my feeling of false ego, I have been engaged by your Maya and have identified myself with the body and consequent bodily relations. I have taken shelter of your lotus feet because you are the only person of whom to take shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman and between spirit and matter. So there's a very, very honest admission. This is what Sutta Goswami means when he says truthfully. One cannot be pretentious is in. And it begins with Arjuna saying, I'm confused. I'm confused. Confusion is not a good thing. It's not a good thing. Which way should I go? What should I don't know what to do. I have to do something. We're all by the influence of the modes of material nature, we have to act. Well, actually, even beyond the modes of material nature, we have to act. Under the influence of the modes of material nature, we're forced to act in a particular way. But once we transcend the influence of the three modes of material nature, we're free to act in any way that we like within what is called the regulative principles of freedom. So we must act under any circumstance, or whether we are liberated from all material circumstances. Activity is inherent in us. And if we are not active in the service of the Lord, then we are active in the service of Maya, which means in the service of our senses. Now, underlying all of this is what we hear. The so-called knowledge we acquire through hearing. And that knowledge is revealed to us, or being put into the position to acquire whatever knowledge it is that we do acquire, is arranged wholly and solely and completely by the Supersoul. The Supersoul is within the heart, as this purport begins saying. The Supersoul is in the heart of every living entity. And there are countless living entities. I saw a little program about a huge puffball. You ever come across a puffball in the fields? It was like this big. And then they broke it, the man who was doing it, he broke it open and he showed how just in one little section of it, there were trillions of spores that would produce more puffballs. So there were inconceivable numbers of spores in this one puffball. And each spore had the potential to produce another puffball, within which there would be countless other. Prabhupada gives the example also about banyan tree. How within a banyan tree seed that big, smaller than a mustard seed, there's the potential banyan tree. And that seed comes from just millions and trillions and countless numbers of seeds that are within all the fruit that are produced through the life of the banyan tree. And every single seed has a jiva in it. Every single spore has a jiva in it. And every jiva is accompanied by the Supersoul. And the Supersoul is explained here. It reveals whatever knowledge you need to know. This is a very important point. Very important point. I'm getting a bit Australian. This is a very important point to understand, that we all live on a need-to-know basis. I need to know. And this is what Arjuna is saying. I need to know. Why do I need to know? Because I don't know. That's why. I need to know because I don't know, and my ignorance is causing great confusion for me in the face of the circumstances that I'm in. And Prabhupada makes a very powerful statement at the beginning of that purport of chapter 2, number 7. And this is, once you get used to hearing and reading these things, you realize nobody says things like this. So Arjuna says to Krishna, now I'm confused about my duty, and I've lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct. Please instruct. And Prabhupada says this. You just don't hear this from anyone else. By nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. In every step there is perplexity, and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. One thing we have to recognize is that we're all inside something. Here we are inside this building, and what's going on in this building has a particular purpose. You go downtown to the Crown Casino, is it? I don't know, just the local Brisbane casino. You go down there and you get inside that, and there's something else going on. And both buildings are inside the city of Brisbane. And Brisbane's inside the country of Australia, and Australia's part of the planet of Earth, and the Earth is a part of the solar system, and on we go. That, and bring it back down to, in fact, I'm inside this body. And I can be inside so many different bodies. There's a whole field of research into that, because we hear 8,400,000 species of life, Prabhupada says. Sometimes he says forms of life. And we have the understanding of species and genus from a man called Linnaeus, a Swedish Catholic monk, who set about trying to categorize what we see in nature, plants and birds and beasts and so on. And they're called species, like different species of dog. But then he said, well, but there's one overriding nature of a dog, so that becomes the genus, canine, and then the name of the different species. But when we come to understand 8,400,000, are we saying species or forms? Because if you say a form, you can say, well, dog is just one form. There may be so many different varieties, but they don't necessarily have to be categorized as species. They're just different forms of dogs. So dog is one form. So then if you take that conception and expand it out, 8,400,000 forms with all the variegated varieties within those forms, and we look at nature, then it's endlessly mutable. But each form, each individual form that comes about through the process of procreation becomes the home of a jiva for some time. And in every form, there's a need of intelligence, there's a need of knowledge in order to just keep that jiva, as Prabhupada explained, the body and soul together. So then if you look all through nature, you see so much intelligence at work. And so much knowledge there within every species. It's just, as the saying is, it's fascinating. And material science is in total thrall of this fascination. Just looking at it or trying to work out how it all works and so on. Without any understanding of how it is under control. and that it is under the control of a person. Not even the complete person, just an expansion of an expansion of an expansion of an expansion of that person. The sequence of understanding is that Lord Krishna expands himself as Balaram. And from Balaram comes the Chaturvyuha, the first Chaturvyuha expansion of Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshan and Vasudeva. And from that first Sankarshan comes a second Chaturvyuha expansion. And from that second Sankarshan comes Lord Narayan. And from Lord Narayan comes all the Vishnu forms that inhabit all of the Vaikuntha planets. But also comes the Mahavishnu. And from the Mahavishnu comes the Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. And then Garbhodakshayi Vishnu expands as the Kshirodakshayi Vishnu. And Kshirodakshayi Vishnu expands himself into the heart of every living entity throughout the multifarious universes of the material world. The original Krishna and the original Balaram, they never left Goloka Vrindavan. So it's just a little faraway little fluid of the energy of the Lord, maintaining countless universes, maintaining countless living entities and countless variegated situations, and giving them the knowledge they need whenever they need it. That's why the human form of life is very special. Prabhupada explains, in the human form of life, we have a pinch of liberation. And that pinch of liberation is that we can be conscious of our consciousness. And we can reflect upon the nature of things. We can look at something and ask what I call philosophical questions. What is the meaning? What is the purpose? Why does anything exist? A buffalo or a polar bear or a lizard or a snake or a bird in the sky, they're not reflecting upon their situation. They are completely bound up within a particular combination of their modes of material nature, and they have whatever knowledge they need in that circumstance, and no more. But Satchitananda is the nature of every living entity. So Prabhupada uses this word here, potent. There's the potent situation, and then there is the manifestation of that potency. Potent means it's dormant there, it's there, but something needs to be done to activate it. It's potentially there. So, what's the first verse of the 7th chapter? Does anyone know? Maya Shakta Manapata Yoga Yukja Bhagavad Ashraya Samagyam Yatabhyasya Touch Śrīmad. Now this is a very important verse. And this verse, as the first verse of the 7th chapter, is a direct continuation of the conclusive statement Krishna makes about yoga and yogis at the end of the 6th chapter. The chapterization is there, but Krishna continues speaking from verse 47 of the 6th chapter to verse 1 of the 7th chapter. He continues speaking. And he says, now hear how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. This is actually the birthright of the human being. This is the purpose of the human form of life. And unless and until one comes to this understanding, then one is not fully a human being. Prabhupada uses the term in this purport, and he uses it very often, a poor fund of knowledge. Human form of life is meant for an abundant form of knowledge, a full knowledge of one's identity and the purpose of one's existence. And therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions Ahimsa a few times, and Srila Prabhupada gives an explanation of Ahimsa on different levels each time that it's mentioned. You can aggregate them all together and get a sense of what is Ahimsa in totality. But in what verse is it? In the 10th chapter, yes, here it is. Ahimsa, non-violence, means that one should not do anything which will put others into misery or confusion. Material activities that are promised by so many politicians, sociologists, philanthropists, and so on, do not produce very good results because the politicians and philanthropists have no transcendental vision. They do not know what is actually beneficial for human society. Ahimsa means that people should be trained in such a way that the full utilization of the human body can be achieved. The human body is meant for spiritual realization, so any movement or any commissions which do not further that end, commit violence on the human body. That which furthers the future spiritual happiness of the people in general is called non-violence. So, in the acquisition of real knowledge, we need to understand that we're all victims of violence. We live in a violent society. Not just here in Australia, but the whole society, or the whole of human society all over the world now is based upon violence. And as a result of that, the perpetuation of violence is just expanding and expanding and expanding. And violence is very destructive. That's what ultimately violence means, to destroy. And that is why Shonaka Rishi addresses Sutta right in the first chapter of the Bhagavatam as the captain of the ship to help us cross the dangerous ocean of the age of Kali, which destroys all the good qualities of the human being. And the name of the captain, the word for captain, that is used there is Karnadara. Karna means the ear. Dara means the holder of the ear. The captain of the ship holds everyone's ear. If you look at ships from the most ancient times to the present, that is the principle. The captain speaks and everybody listens. Even up to a huge aircraft carrier. The biggest aircraft carrier in the world has 10,000 people on it. 10,000 people, all on different decks, in different compartments, doing all different services all over the ship. From below the surface up to the flight deck, everywhere. And then in one corner there's the captain's bridge, the bridge. And there's a system throughout the whole boat, in every single corner of the boat, when at the flick of a switch, the captain can say, "Now hear this." And everyone on the ship stops to listen. So Krishna is saying, now hear this. Hear how? By practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. And then he goes further. The first 3 verses are very important. Chapter 7. He goes further and he says, Yanam teham savidyanam idam vachyam yashishata yasyatvarane bhumiyam yaj yatavyam vashishite. I shall now declare to you, I'm going to say it to you, I shall now declare to you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and luminous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. Then Manushanam Sahasrihu Kaschid Yatati Sidaye Yatatamapi Sidanam Kaschid Mam Vekitatvatva. Out of many, many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection in knowledge. That's what is meant there. Some perfection of knowledge. And we find people with all kinds of perfections in all kinds of fields of knowledge, both material and spiritual. But then Krishna says, but out of many, many more thousands who have attained some kind of perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. In truth. And those who do know Krishna in truth, they know everything. They know the summum bonum. They understand the answer to all the questions. Why does anything exist? What is the purpose of life? And so on. Does anyone have any questions? This is a great subject. There's never enough time to go in full depth with it. So we just give it a snapshot. But you put all the snapshots together in time and you get a moving picture. You get a very clear understanding. Yes?
How you were mentioning that...
We have a microphone? Hare Krishna.
I can speak
Okay.
louder.
There you go.
So, you know how you were mentioning that Krishna through his expansion, he's just maintaining all these universes while he's, having a good time, and like he has nothing to do with the material world. Well, when we are here in this material world, the illusion is so strong that we start to think this is the place to be. This is the permanent place for us. Yes, we hear people passing away around us. Yet the illusion is so strong that we hear about someone's passing away, and the next moment we are carrying on with our own lives as if nothing has happened, and we've forgotten, that we are in the Mrityu Lok, we are in this material world where death is happening. It is for real. It always bewilders me that why this is happening, but we still forget. I keep forgetting.
So, yes. So, what is the question?
The question is, how do I remember this?
How do I remember? Oh, how do I remember? Harinam, 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 Eva Kevalam, Kalo, Nasteva, 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 Natiranyata. In this age of Kali, we chant the Harinam. And it's a very interesting point. At the beginning of the second canto, first chapter, when, at the end of the first canto, we have the appearance of Sukadeva Swami. And Maharaj Pariksit asks him a very important question. You know that question? He says, what should one do when he's on the threshold of death? And Prabhupada has a very nice take on that in the lecture. He says, Maharaj Pariksit is asking Sukadeva Goswami, what should one do when he's on the threshold of death? And then he pauses for a moment, and then he says very strongly, and who is not on the threshold of death? But then we also see from Mahabharata that it's a very wonderful illusion in the material world, that the snake at the lake, when Yudhishthira comes across all his four brothers who've drunk from the lake and they appear to be dead, and the snake is there, who's actually his father, Yamaraj, asks him a series of questions, and he says, if you answer these questions correctly, then I'll revive your brothers. And one of the questions is, what is the most wonderful thing in the world? And Parikit's answer is, the most wonderful thing in the world is that a man will see that his father has died, that his father before him has died, his father before him, and so on and so on and so on. Through countless generations into the past, everyone has died, but everyone will think, I won't die. It won't happen to me. So this is the bewildering power of the material energy. But then we see, after Sukadeva appears, he congratulates him for his question. But then he says, he's, in answer to his question, he's going to recite the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. But then he drops in a very important verse. It just seems like, what? Why this? He says, Itanya vidyavanam nam ichatam akutobhayam yoginam ripaniyanitam harinam anokirtam. He says, whether one be a person who's ichatam, has all material desires, or whether one is self-satisfied, or whether one is seeking all kinds of yogic powers, the doubtless and fearless way of progress for all is Harinam Anokirtana. So what we can understand from Harinam, after the ways of the great authorities. But he says that immediately after he said that he's going to recite Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. And then he proceeds after that to recite the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. So in the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, the summum bonum is presented. Complete knowledge of the absolute truth is presented. So complete knowledge of the absolute truth and complete understanding of the absolute truth is inherent within the holy name of the Lord, within the Mahamantra. And by exposing oneself to this vibration, we didn't get into this is another hour's discussion or more, the aprakrita sound vibration, transcendental sound vibration, removes this illusory conception from the mind and brings us to understanding of ourselves as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and an understanding of the Supreme Lord. So therefore, we have to, again, as my dear friend Vaisheshika Prabhu says, keep the transcendental sound vibration going. We live in an ocean of sound. And all of the mundane sounds that we hear, especially in this age, and especially through the advertising industry, is that life is meant for material pleasure. All you have to do is pursue it. And we live in a death to nothing society. You look at all the, what do they call it, over 50 living facilities now. And you see all these old people acting like they're teenagers, or that they're still in their 20s or 30s or 40s. And we're denying the fact that they're at the fag end of their life and they're going to die any day. What to speak of the fact that the reality of our situation in the material world is today or tomorrow we die. But the power of Maya is that she covers us, and we forget this. The two very powerful qualities of Maya are prapshakatmaka and avaranatmaka. She can cover you and she can throw you. And that's what we've been doing. We've been covered by Maya and being thrown around the universe, up and down, all around, since time immemorial, pursuing material desires on the basis of indoctrination from material sound. So we have to expose ourselves. We have to become infected with transcendental sound. And from that, like I was saying last night in the talk, with the information that comes to us and the instruction that comes to us through transcendental sound, then we are able to purify our intelligence also and think more clearly with the understanding of reality and not with the understanding of illusion. Because what we think we understand in illusion is just another illusion. So it's illusion within illusion within illusion, and it's endless. So transcendental sound vibration, either and or the chanting of the holy name or the chanting of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam. Constant hearing and constant chanting. Gradually, and proportionately, the fog of illusion vanishes. And that's all it is, it's a fog. Yes? Hare Krishna. A good question. Yes, ma'am. Rilka.
Thank you, Prabhu. So, originally the jiva was with Krishna, but somehow we got desire to enjoy independently, and thus we were thrown into the material world. Does that mean the modes of nature also has influence in the spiritual world as well?
No. So let's reshape what you just said. Take it off the philosophical abstract, because you are a jiva.
Yes.
So put it in an I statement. I was once with Krishna in the spiritual world, but I left. Does that mean that the three modes of material nature were affecting me then? The answer to that first is no. Why we leave our relationship with Krishna, Srila Prabhupada explains very clearly. Actually, if you give me a contact detail, I'll send you a little, or is there a website or some shared page for this group? I don't know. Yes? I'll post something on it that Srila Prabhupada said in room conversation in Los Angeles where somebody asked a similar question, why would we leave? And Prabhupada makes the point that we have misused our independence. We have exercised our independence and we've turned away from Krishna. And when we turn away from Krishna, we are immediately captured by Maya. And we fall under the influence of the three modes of material nature. Mamchayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati chaitam brahmabhuya kalpate. By the practice of devotional service, bhakti yoga, we come sagunan samati chaitam. We transcend the influence of the three modes of material nature. But in the first instance, we come under the influence of the three modes of material nature. And there's a sequence of verses, again, in the 7th chapter, where Krishna is explaining about the function and the result of the action of the three modes of material nature. Where he says in verse number 12, know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. Deluded by the three modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So then the question arises, well, why? Why would I use my independence to do something as stupid as that? So then you can segue into the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. When Lord Chaitanya met Prakasananda Sarasvatī and the 60,000 Mayavad sannyasis, who were really quite perturbed by his behavior, because he was singing and dancing in the street and attracting thousands of people, whereas they were very austere, studying Vedanta. And they said, why don't you do this? Why are you doing this and not this? It's contrary to our order. Why are you doing it? And his response is very revealing. He says, well, my spiritual master certified me as a fool. So if you want to make progress in spiritual life, you have to accept that I made a very foolish mistake. I did a very stupid thing. And as a result of that, I'm suffering in this material world. But now, by some good fortune, we understand the actual source of our suffering. That's also very nicely explained by Krishna and Srila Prabhupada in verse 32 of the 6th chapter. Actually, verse 32 is where Krishna ends his instructions that began from verse 11 of chapter 2. Because he gives a conclusive statement about yoga and yogis in verse number 32, and Prabhupada gives a very revealing purport. The verse is Atma pamyena savatra samam pasyati Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkam cha yogi paramo mataha. He is the perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. This is an oblique statement about bhakti, about the bhakti yoga. But in the purport, Prabhupada says something very revealing. He says, one who is Krishna conscious is a perfect yogi. He is aware of everyone's happiness and distress by dint of his own personal experience. The cause of the distress of a living entity is forgetfulness of his relationship with God. And the cause of happiness is knowing Krishna to be the supreme enjoyer of all the activities of the human being, the proprietor of all lands and planets, and the sincerest friend of all living entities. The perfect yogi knows that the living being who is conditioned by the laws of material nature is subjected to the threefold material miseries due to forgetfulness of his relationship with Krishna. And one who is in Krishna consciousness is happy. And because of this, he tries to distribute the knowledge of Krishna everywhere. Since the perfect yogi tries to broadcast the importance of becoming Krishna conscious, he is the best philanthropist in the world, and he is the dearest servitor of the Lord. Nacha tasman manushreshu kaschin me priyakrittama. Bhagavad Gita chapter 18, verse 69. In other words, a devotee of the Lord always looks to the welfare of all living entities, and in this way he is factually the friend of everyone. He is the best yogi because he does not desire perfection of yoga for his personal benefit, but tries for others also. He does not envy his fellow living entities. He is a contrast between a pure devotee of the Lord and a yogi interested only in his personal elevation. The yogi who has withdrawn to a secluded place in order to meditate perfectly may not be as perfect as a devotee who is trying his best to turn every man to Krishna consciousness. So here we see we're given the opportunity to again exercise our independence. We're given a choice that we don't have within the realm of material life. Therefore, spiritual life is called ecstasy. Ecstatic. Out of the static. In the material world, everything appears to be active and moving, but it's all just a static situation where there's a loop: birth, old age, disease, death, repeat. Birth, old age, disease, death, repeat. And we have no independence in this. How would you like to die? Would you like to die by taking arsenic or strychnine? What does it matter? You're going to die. And this is all because we have misused our independence. And as a result of this misuse of independence, we have lost our independence. There's a famous argument in philosophy. Do we have free will, or is everything determined? Well, this philosophy gives us the understanding that we have free will, but we have misused our free will and put ourselves in a situation where everything is determined for us by circumstances. We come out from under those circumstances, which are imposed upon us by the modes of material nature, when we are given the understanding, when we are given that knowledge by which our ignorance is destroyed, and we understand everything about our nature. Then we're given a choice, just like Arjuna is given a choice. He's still free. He independently surrenders himself to Krishna. But then Krishna says, well, what are you going to do, Arjuna? And Arjuna says, well, and before he says, what are you going to do? He says, you can do whatever you like. So then he chooses to surrender to Krishna in knowledge. So it's all about use of independence. and because we misuse our independence and put ourselves under the conditioning influence of the material world, we fall under the influence of the modes of nature, and then we become situated in a fallen, conditioned state. But we are not fallen, conditioned souls. There's one line of argument that we have never been with Krishna, that we have been eternally in Maya. But that's a fundamental misunderstanding of the philosophy. Our philosophy, Prabhupada says, is the philosophy of going back home, back to God. So how do you go back to somewhere you've never been? Yes? And how do you forget something you don't know? So the answer is in this, and it sheets back to the fact that we are all responsible for ourselves. The only thing or person that we are victim of is ourselves. We have created the situation in which we are in such illusion. We don't have to be here. We were not forced to come here. We chose voluntarily to come. And until and unless we acquire that knowledge that shows us the way out, then there's no way out. But one has to be very careful after one has been shown the way out to not again become intoxicated by the material energy. There's a very famous film called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And it's about life in an insane asylum. And there's one person who's in that asylum who's very intelligent. And he works out a way for them to get out of the asylum. So they make a plan, and on the night that they're going to get out of the asylum, they have a big party to celebrate before they leave. And they all get drunk, and they all fall asleep. And then the next thing they're waking up, and the day staff is coming in, and they're still trapped. Even though the window was open, and all they had to do was climb out and go. But they didn't, because they still had attachment. So we have to give up all attachment to the material world. And attachment means attraction to it or repulsion from it. We have to develop a neutrality towards everything in the material. Whether it's gold or rubbish in the street, it's all just matter. So although the way out is shown, we have to walk the line, as it says. Walk the line. Follow in the footsteps of the Ācāryas. And then our success is guaranteed. It's only a matter of time. And we will be, again, with Krishna in the spiritual world. If you want it. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you all very much for braving the weather to come out this morning. Are we expecting more people? There's a working bee today, is that? So more people will come. Is breakfast ready? Well, there must be more people coming now. Yeah? Hare Krishna. We walk outside, there's a huge crowd, yes? Hare Bol.